first person I see is Dylan. California Post is here. There we go, everybody. Circulate that, please.
Hello and welcome to the Dodgers Post, the new Dodgers podcast from the newly launched California Post. I'm Jack Harris, California Post Dodger beat writer, along with Dylan Hernandez, our baseball columnist. Welcome to everybody who's never watched or listened to Dylan and I in podcast form before. Welcome back to everybody who watched our former show at our former place of employment. It's a new start for us, a new start for the Dodgers this season, coming off back-to-back World Series titles. And this show will be with you every step of the way this year with analysis of what's going on with the team. We'll mix in some interviews here, and then, you know, for our returning audience, you know, we also keep it a little bit light, like to have fun with it as we talk about the Dodgers.
Yeah, this is not where you come for like analytics study, right?
No.
This is, we're just two schlubs at the bar.
Can you even
talking
describe?
baseball.
Do you know how to describe like what OPS plus is, or?
Yeah, it's like relative to the league. I know that.
But yeah, no. Like I said, we'll have a weekly show, maybe some bonus episodes mixed in. So thank you everybody for following along. We are here in Scottsdale, Arizona, for the start of spring training. It was Cactus League Media Day today. The Dodgers will have their first workout at Camelback Ranch tomorrow. Dylan, we heard from Dave Roberts today. He said that this is probably the best team they've ever had on paper in his time here. Obviously, it was a huge offseason with Edwin Diaz and Kyle Tucker joining. Even this week, there's been some signings with Evan Phillips and Kike Hernandez coming back. I'll just start big picture. When you look at this winter, when you look at where the team's at coming into the season, like, do you even have questions about what you're expecting from this club, what they're capable of this season? It seems like the entire narrative, of course, is, you know, they're being bad for baseball, or, you know, with their $400 million payroll again. Kind of where is your mind at when you look at where this team is at and kind of what you're expecting this season?
Well, look, I was a big advocate of bringing the whole team back, obviously, right? As much as possible, like, you know, all the key guys, because I do believe that when a team wins a championship, they have earned the right to kind of, you know, to defend that title. Now, that said, I'm not going to lie, right? I had questions, you know, kind of before they won the World Series about, you know, guys getting older, right? You know, we saw Betts have not a very good offensive season last year. Now, you could say it was because of the illness at the beginning, but you kind of don't know, right? And as their team kind of ages, I thought that would be kind of problematic. Right now, they did, you know, by injecting some youth with Tucker, you're getting kind of a prime-aged, you know, superstar there that should be able to kind of maybe offset some of those things. But yeah, I do have questions because I do think that, you know, again, as they get older, you know, you don't know when, you know, guys kind of make that, right, turn that corner from being, you know, very productive players to being guys that can't be in the league anymore. I mean, the thing is that happens. Right? It happens to everybody, because if not, like, people will still be playing at the age of 60, right? At some point, you can't do it physically. And we kind of don't really know, right? You don't know until, like, it happens, right? So, I mean, I do like, you know, the Muncy deal in the sense that, hey, you know what, they're positioned here to get whatever Muncy has, like, left in his, you know, and I'm not saying that he has declined at all. But, you know, the fact that, you know, if it does happen, they kind of position themselves in a place where that contract's not going to hurt them, right? And, you know, again, Is
there such a thing as a contract that hurts them now anyway, with the amount of money they spend?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you gave a guy like a 20-year deal and there's a, you know, their elevated luxury tax penalty, sure, like it can, right? So, you know, the rotation, I think when you look at kind of the medical histories of all the guys, I mean, you know, there is kind of this world, and I wrote about this the other day, where, I mean, I wouldn't bet on this, but like if a bunch of kind of stuff goes wrong, a bunch of guys, right, go through the floor, and then the rotation's not healthy, and then all of a sudden the bullpen's overtaxed, right, which we kind of saw a bit of last year. Yeah, sure, things can kind of spiral out of control. You know, that said, again, if you know, the basis of my kind of thinking though is, again, right, the fact that the teams that win championships have the right to kind of defend it. You know, so kind of they brought back all the key guys there, and they made some additions that I think are going to give them some, you know, a bit of a buffer, right, if something's happened to go wrong. So yeah, as far as an off season goes, this is kind of, I think, as good as it could have gotten.
I think the other thing with keeping the core together, it gives you some, insurance, some buffer against if guys do kind of struggle with age, right? Like that's the balance you have to strike. And I think for a team like the Dodgers, with where a lot of their guys are at age-wise, I think what you'll start to see, and we saw this with Mookie Betts a little bit last year, even Freddie Freeman, it's like at some point your body starts to change, and the things that you did either mechanically or in your hitting cage drills or just the way you thought about your swing with mental cues, those things stop working at some point, and you have to find a way to adapt and evolve. I think like Chris Taylor was the best example of this a couple years ago for the Dodgers. Those things are going to happen, and I'm not going to be surprised if we see guys kind of struggle with that this year and sort of the way we did last year. Part of a big way to offset that, though, is if you have a clubhouse and a culture that when things aren't all clicking, when things aren't all going right, you can find other ways to manufacture runs or win games or grind out postseason series. And I think that's what's important even today. You know, Dave Roberts talking about Evan Phillips and Kike Hernandez coming back, guys that aren't even going to play for probably the first half of the season, but just having those kind of veteran character guys in your room can help you handle the pressure of being, you know, the big villain of baseball that's going for a World Series three-peat, handle the ups and downs of a long regular season coming off of what was a really taxing postseason. And I think that was the important balance that the Dodgers struck this winter. Is yes, like obviously you go and you get the top free agent outfielder to fill your outfield hole, you get the top free agent closer to fill your bullpen hole, but you also kept that core intact in a way that I think they're going to need to lean on in a lot of different ways this coming season with all of the challenges that are going to go into navigating the after effects and the tax that come with playing as deep into October as they have the last couple of years.
Yeah, and that's where kind of their challenge, right, is going to be this spring in terms of how they kind of bring guys along. Obviously, you know, Max Muncy already kind of talked about, you know, having to, right, maybe take it a little bit slower, that they were kind of, right.
It's going to be an old school spring.
It's old school spring, right? Yeah, back in the days, right, guys had to go get jobs and stuff in the off season.
Yeah, okay, you wrote this in your column today. How far back in the days are we talking about?
I don't know, I guess like in the 60s. Like my dad.
Did guys have side hustle jobs in the 60s?
Yeah, like my dad said that he'd go downtown and he'd see like Johnny Padres and stuff.
Okay.
You know,
yeah.
so.
Because it's pre-free agency, kind of like you can really make money.
Yeah, you know, but obviously they're so well compensated now that like, right, if you're a professional baseball player, you'd be negligent not to be training year round.
Right.
And
better resources,
yeah,
just kind of like the whole training thing.
And now, you know, again with this team though, they've gone 2 years, right? Very short off seasons.
I think it's been like 33 postseason games the last 2 years.
Yeah,
two international trips.
Exactly. Yeah. So you know all this stuff
WBC this year.
All this stuff is going to kind of add up, and so you know, right? Some of the guys I'm sure are going to be kind of slow played. Now you have to balance that. Kind of on the other end of the spectrum, though, you have guys like, you know, Yamamoto and Ohtani who've already been here for a while, and you know already kind of look ready to go because they kind of have to be, right? They're going to be representing their country very soon. So yeah, you know, they're going to have a bunch of stuff to kind of juggle. And Roberts kind of said, you know what, we're going to have to do this on an individual basis. So this is going to be, you know, him checking in with all these different players. And it's not going to be just kind of like okay, we're going to do all this kind of slow. It's going to be, everything's going to be very individualized. You know, but again, those are kind of the demands of modern baseball and kind of the price of winning these days.
Okay, let's look ahead to spring. I guess first, what are you going to be looking for when we're out at camp this weekend? You know, I think obviously we've seen some of the guys at the FanFest event. A lot of guys have already been at CBR starting to work out. Where is your, again, like when you look at a team that's pretty complete, kind of what are you going to be looking to see to give you some indication of like either concerns or expectations you have about kind of how the build up to the season is going to look?
Yeah, I mean, I think, right, if you kind of want to take like kind of the high-end positive stuff, I mean, you're going to be looking at Ohtani. This is, right, he's not coming off surgery now. This is, if he's going to kind of have that year where he does kind of the two-way player, I think to the, you know, the maximum extent, it's going to be this year, right? Now, you know, who knows how many starts he actually makes, but, you know, Roberts not too long ago told us that he thought he would be contending for a Cy Young Award, right? So he means he's going to make a certain number of starts at least. You know, a guy like Yamamoto, you know, and again, I think that's like a fascinating case because here you're talking about like a smaller guy who pitched a ton last year, but has very kind of, you know, again, Eastern training methods, right, that are going to be, right? No, I mean, it's different. Yeah, well, no, because I was talking to somebody about this, right, about how, you know, in Western medicine, basically everything has to be, right? If there's not a research paper done on it, it's not like a real thing, right? Whereas, again, a lot of stuff, medical stuff that kind of comes from the East is more, based on like, well, maybe, right? Okay, if you fix this here, this is going to feel better up here. And this is just based on like thousands of years of civilization that they've had, right? And so, on one hand, you're kind of still looking, okay, he's still a human being, he's still smaller. How much can he, right? How much durability can he really have? At the same time, when we saw at the World Series last year, nobody else could have done that, right? So at this point, I'm kind of a little bit curious to see if maybe, right, they can kind of push the boundaries in a way of what's possible. I think that'll be very interesting. In terms of just kind of like the guy that has like, a couple guys that have like huge kind of, swings potentially in their career outcomes from this point forward. Roki Sasaki, can he figure out a third pitch maybe and become a starting pitcher, or does he profile better as a closer? River Ryan sounds like he has put on 30 pounds, 30 pounds of muscle. Sounds like, he's literally going to be literally going to be a different pitcher this year. Anytime you hear about, right, guys like, drastically changing their physiques, you kind of think like, like maybe he's onto something here, right? And so, theoretically, we've seen that before, right? Yeah. Guys come and they're completely different guys, and all of a sudden now, if he's an all-star caliber pitcher, all of a sudden, right? I have very high expectations.
Show one, River Ryan, all-star pitcher. Right. He might get to pitch enough to make that case.
But that's kind of the thing, though, right? Let's just say that happens. It changes everything, right? Sure. And all of a sudden now you're not having to kind of, because again, one thing is with the Dodgers is they've had the luxury of kind of being able to, okay, let's just make sure everybody's healthy in October. Right. But what we kind of did see, in the mid-season last year was, right, their lead in the standings just kind of starts evaporating. And now granted, right, the Dodgers kind of had like an easy schedule, the last like month and a half or so. But there was a point there where it kind of,
Padres weren't very good.
Yeah. but it got a little bit dicey there for a moment, right? And they did in the end.
They were in second place.
Yeah, and then in the end, right, they had to play like in a wild card round, which they've been able to kind of bypass, usually in the past, which kind of complicates your path there. So, there is some importance on the regular season. It's not like you can just like, okay, you just count on making it to October. But
those 162 games do kind of matter.
Yeah, but right, if now all of a sudden you get a different, if a River Ryan or a, Emmett Sheehan or any number of these guys that if they can kind of take that next step in their careers, now all of a sudden you have the luxury of, okay, we can even slow play Blake Snell even more, for example, right, and make sure he's ready for October. So. Those are kind of the things. And then I guess Ward, right? I'm very curious about this 28-year-old
Ryan
Ward, right? The 28-year-old,
Pacific Coast League MVP last year.
Right? Is he Crash Davis, or is he going to be, like a real guy? And I'm not sure he's necessarily going to get the chance, if that chance will come here.
Kyle Tucker signing put a damper on that.
Yeah, but, maybe he's going to be a type of guy that they can move in at the trade deadline, and right, it'll be good for him, and the Dodgers might be able to go out and get a piece that they need. So those are kind of the main ones for me.
All right, River Ryan All-Star.
River Ryan All-Star. I am going.
Trade deadline piece.
Okay. Yeah, mark all these things down. I am River Ryan All-Star is where I'm going with this.
We did. Hey, at the start, people don't know. At the start of 2021, Ohtani showed up to camp with the Angels, looked like a completely different guy. He was like, hey, what are his MVP odds? Dylan was on it first.
I was on it first.
All right, bigger picture. Do you have any take or care at all about this bad for baseball discussion? Because no conversation about the Dodgers now can happen without at least bringing this up. Like, is this overblown? Is there some legitimacy to this? Do you care at all? Like, what do you make of this whole discourse?
I think it's just like a bad faith argument, honestly, right? Like, I think, here's the thing, right? Is that right now, you got the best player in the world, most popular player in the world, playing like on a signature team. So the sport looks kind of healthy right now, right? He's playing in October, and you're kind of like, oh, like the ratings are up and the sport's popular. The reality is that baseball is not in a good position financially right now, right? The RSNs have all kind of crapped out. Even like the national.
It's in a fluid position financially, at the very least.
Yeah, very right. Even like their national TV deals, you're kind of not really sure where this is going to go. With all the cord cutting, that's obviously affected the business. And, probably, right, and we see like the valuations of the franchises kept going up for a long time. And, right, people bought these teams. And, it's not like look, when you buy a team, like you're not just like paying cash like forward, right? Like it's not like, okay, here's $3 billion. Like these things are like financed. And, I'm sure some of these payments are coming due. And so, right, and this.
And franchise valuations have stagnated a little bit.
And so, right,
sports.
so what kind of happens there? Usually most businesses, right, will start like, laying people off. Well, here you cannot, right, you can't reduce like the labor force because what you're selling, that's exactly what you're selling. So you can't do that. So what happens then, right? You're trying to kind of control the cost of labor basically. And so to me, this just seems like a disingenuous argument, again, because you're looking at, baseball's not so popular to where you can, right, have a Texas Rangers, Arizona Diamondbacks World Series and have people watch it. People are going to watch the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter who's there, right? Rangers Diamondbacks was a killer for the sport. You do not want that, right? It's better if the Dodgers are there every time. I mean, I would almost let the Dodgers go there automatically.
The Phoenix native in me. People care about the D-backs, sort of. But yes, your point is taken.
Yeah, so I don't buy this whole like bad for baseball thing because I think it's clearly good for baseball, right? And again,
it is impossible to argue that last year's World Series did anything but elevate the game to a place where it has not been in decades, maybe. Like that World Series had as much kind of cultural resonance, around sports, not even just with baseball fans, that I think we've seen from, probably going back to like those Yankees teams of the 90s.
Yeah, and I think again, right, it's good to have kind of reoccurring characters in October, and you go back to those Yankees teams, right? I mean, honestly, outside of like maybe Jeter, I don't think like on an individual level you had like the same level of like star power, right? But the fact that like guys like Paul O'Neill and like Bernie Williams kind of became household names around America, I think was a good thing because baseball is a regional sport, right? Meaning that teams and their players are like well known in their market, but like you go outside of the market, right? I don't know how many Cincinnati Reds I could name, right? Like, and so. But that's right. So that gives kind of everybody kind of like it gives a sport, right? The sport itself, kind of like a touchstone where everybody's kind of familiar with at least one team, and that's the team, right? Our local team is going to try to beat. Right? The Dodgers go into any city, it's obviously a big deal. So no, I think it's clearly good, and I just think this whole argument about a cap really is to try to make up for some of probably the careless and borderline reckless spending of some of these owners.
Are the Dodgers unbeatable?
No, it's baseball. No, again, right? I mean, if the wrong guys get hurt, like this is going to be like a problem, right? And like, because then you kind of hear these other arguments too. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter if there's going to be a salary cap, right? Like, look at the Kansas City Chiefs; they kept winning, whatever. But it's like, no, it's not the same because, you know what? Like Patrick Mahomes touches the ball like on literally every single offensive play, right? If Ohtani could take every at bat, yeah, sure, I would like their chances, right? But that's not the way the sport works, and again, yeah, sure, things kind of go wrong. Like look at how close they were to losing last year.
Well, another part of this dynamic that I think this part was really hammered home this offseason is just how fundamentally transformed the Dodgers have been by this like Ohtani contract, right? Like this offseason was the one, because I don't know about you, I was surprised that the Dodgers ended up being as aggressive or landing the guys that they did in Diaz and Tucker. And part of that's because they had a good core. Yeah, they needed to get a reliever, but they could have gotten away with not signing a top outfielder. Like they won a World Series last year with Michael Conforto being their everyday left fielder. At least got to the playoffs with that. But like this is the kind of winner where if you are worried about the financial constraints at all, you're probably not making these kind of deals. But Ohtani, the Dodgers' revenues in his first year with the team jumped by more than $200 million. We wrote about this. Like in sponsorships alone, they're making more money than half of the teams in the league do overall. And it is a really unique situation that they find themselves in that probably, when it comes to like the financial disparities, like clearly the amount the Dodgers are spending is kind of out of whack with the rest of the league. But part of that's because they're in the kind of position that no other team will be ever again, where you have this kind of player who has this much commercial appeal, who's this important on the field, and then decided to get, only take $2 million a year. And I think that's the part that probably gets lost in all this, especially when you start talking about like bigger structural changes to the sport that might be made.
Yeah, no, because he's definitely like an outlier in that regard, right? I mean, in that, and that's kind of the thing, right? Whenever they were kind of setting this up, they didn't take into account that, right? I mean,
Right.
We as Americans have a very like habit of like viewing everything through like an American prism, and money's
greed.
Yeah, right. You said it, right? But money's kind of our god here, and it's kind of like, well, somebody taking less money, who would do that? But well, a guy comes and does that, and it kind of throws the whole system out of whack. But I agree with that, right? I mean, and I think Scott Boras said something recently about that, about, hey, you know what? This is just a one-off. Like you don't go about changing the whole system, because of one guy. And look, like other Japanese guys do, right? You do have Japanese players that do get paid, right? Yamamoto has a nice, pretty healthy contract.
So he went the other way.
And I'm sure he will opt out of it and make even more money.
He said, "Thank you very much, Shohei. I'm going to take my $75 million signing bonus now."
Right, But yeah, no, you're right about that. I do think that this is kind of like a one-off type situation. And, there in Ohtani, you have a player who, kind of really seems to prioritize his legacy more than anything, right? I mean, he's very kind of, big into just kind of accomplishing something. And that seems to matter to him more than, right, the money stuff. And we saw this, right at various stages. I mean, had he stayed in Japan 2 more years, he could have come here as an unrestricted free agent. Right. They were talking 200, 300 million right there. He wound up signing with the Angels for 2, right? So.
And even in his last year of arbitration, he settled at $30 million, which Tarek Skubal just topped, and Ohtani was being a two-way player.
Well, and then 2023, like his last year with the Angels, right? I mean, here he is playing on a bad team that's on like kind of the periphery of contention, right? They were always kind of like 4 or 5 games back at some point, and this guy kept pitching no matter, right? He lost feeling in his fingers and just like made his next start anyway. No, I don't need an MRI. Like I'm going to keep pitching. Because the possibility of winning to him even trumped the pot of gold that was waiting for him kind of at the end of the season, but he prioritized that more.
All right, let's finish here. In the paper this week, we put together a nice spring training fan guide for anybody coming to Arizona for spring training this year. Go find it. You've spent a lot of springs here. I grew up here and now spend a lot of springs here. Where are your go-to spots in Phoenix, your avoid spots in Phoenix, and just other things as we get ready for camp that being out here conjures for you?
Well, the last couple of springs, right? The, what is it, Chicken N Pickle?
Chicken N Pickle, great place.
Yeah, I'd never played pickleball before. I always thought it was kind of like, surprisingly fun. It really takes the athleticism out of the equation, unless you're playing
that part is helpful.
Unless you're playing a former professional athlete, as we did with the former Oryx pitcher Yu Suzuki, who plays pickleball unlike anyone I've ever seen in my life.
I think the athleticism part still stands, right? Like pickleball does negate the athleticism, but if you're playing a guy who's like a semi-professional pickleball player on top of being a former professional baseball player, it's tougher.
And you has been when he goes back to Japan in the off season, like he plays with professional players, and he's
That's what I'm saying.
He's winning like amateur tournaments like in Orange County now. So this is but that's kind of become a spot. Chibo is like my longtime favorite, right? It's a pizzeria in downtown. It's kind of in this
This
old...
is a hot take because in Phoenix, like Pizzeria Bianco is like the pizza
Yeah, and I
spot.
get it, but you got to wait like a couple hours there. Like Chibo, you can walk in usually. It's pretty quick. I don't know. I am...
Yeah, because it's got a nice little bar you can go to. But no, Chibo's
Yeah,
good.
I'm a big fan of the owner, Michael. He's a big baseball fan.
Wow, look, you're name dropping.
He drops by. No, but seriously, right? And he loves
influential people in Phoenix.
He loves to hear... baseball stories. I think like people that are out to camp and stuff, if he's around, say hi. And the pizza's great. The tartufata is my favorite pizza that I've ever had anywhere. Right. So, what about you?
I don't know. Like the problem with us is when you got to stay out in Glendale all spring, it kind of takes some of the it's not the most vibrant cultural and dining scene, but
I disagree with that. I just think that I just think
you
you
think
need.
Glendale, Arizona is a vibrant cultural and dining scene?
No, maybe cultural. It's like this is the American like strip mall culture.
That's,
If you're
not
into
what, okay.
if you're into like chains and stuff, but that is a form of culture, Jack.
Sure, you're
know.
right. I stand corrected.
but
if you're into chains,
Okay, but here's the thing about Phoenix, though. Okay, is that yes, things are kind of spread out here, and like so, say you go to downtown, right? Downtown doesn't get a great rap, but if you know where to go downtown, unfortunately, right, we're friends with Nick Picoro of the Arizona Republic, who was like, he was a hipster before hipsters were like existed. He was to me hipster 1.0, right? So he knows all the great places to eat. No, seriously, like, right? And I have no idea. He knows like the owner of like every restaurant somehow, and so he's been a great guide for Phoenix, in Phoenix for me personally. And so yeah, I know where to go, man.
all right. I'm just excited to get to the West Valley Golf Center. It's like Top Golf, but it's like knockoff Top Golf. They got like the little screens there and everything's still the same. The ball pops up, but it's just like no frills or anything.
Wait,
You
is it
just
like
go.
a simulated thing, or is it an?
Yeah, they got the little TrackMan screen. You go out, like it's just a driving range out in like the desert. But then you can hit your shots, you follow it, and then it shows it on a screen. You can play virtual rounds. That's what I'm excited for, being back out here. And I guess the baseball a little bit, even though. Yeah, so you got a 7 a.m. wake up call tomorrow for the first day of camp, but. We will be there. We're going to hear from Shohei Ohtani, some other players. Baseball is back. We are back.
We are
back.
We are back.
Podcast
We
form.
are back in
The
podcast form.
Dodgers Post. Do you like this? This was a thing before. You didn't like the name of our old show. Are you okay with the Dodgers Post?
I'm okay with it. Yeah, yeah. I think it's good because we can also it's a formula we can replicate, right? We can have the Lakers Post, and I kind of like the. I don't know, my ADHD, I like everything kind of.
The branding.
Yeah. Which is like, even like in my phone, right? I have everybody by first name, last name. Even my wife. I have her first name, last name.
As opposed to.
Well, some people just put wife or whatever, right?
You put wait. You put your wife's last name and.
Yeah,
her
it's like my an OCD thing. Like I like everything
romantic.
to me. I like everything
no
to me.
emojis or anything.
Yeah. I know it's weird because I'm kind of like a slob, so you wouldn't think that I'm OCD, but I totally am. So,
nice. Is it her maiden name or?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. See.
Yeah.
Things we learn at the end of these podcast episodes. All right. Yeah, we will be back for the first day of Dodgers camp. We'll have a lot of spring training content coming for you. There's already been a ton of stuff up on CaliforniaPost.com. It's crazy. The paper's been launched 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
We've been putting out a lot of stuff across a lot of different teams in LA, but I think we're both very excited to be here covering the Dodgers. It all starts this week, so thank you for watching and thanks for following along.